Before we can even begin to tackle the subject of data warehousing, we need to first build a solid foundational understanding of big data. You may already have some knowledge of this subject, but let's establish some definitions to help move you through each part of this course. So what is big data? Big data is an all-encompassing term to describe very large sets of data that typical database programs are unable to store, manage, or analyze. This definition slightly varies from dictionary to dictionary, but the basic notion is the same, and if you take a few minutes to search the internet, you will be able to find a lot of differently worded definitions that can give you a variety of perspectives that will help you fully grasp the concept. The reason we needed to create such a term in the first place is, quite simply, because humanity has created so much data in the past few decades that newer software was needed to be created to actually manage the data. Traditional Microsoft Access type applications carry a limit to how much data can be stored in any single table. The maximum limit for Access 2016 is just under 33,000 objects within a database, and it carries a maximum file size of 2 gigabytes. It's not too hard to guess that these limitations might work for a small company database, but when we get into areas such as something like Facebook, which has more than 1.7 billion users that each have a significant amount of data, something much more advanced needs to be used to manage and contain that data. And so we have what we now refer to as big data, and there is a lot of it. We are creating data at an exponentially greater rate than we ever have in history. In 1999, it was estimated by Berkeley University that we had created 1.5 billion gigabytes of information, and just 3 years later, that number doubled to 3 billion gigabytes. That was more than a decade ago. And if the same doubling occurred every 3 years, we would now be sitting on something close to more than 10 billion gigabytes of data. It would take billions of traditional access databases to store this data. Of course, anyone can see that this is not an option. So how does anyone manage such large amounts of data? And maybe the more important question is why anyone would want such large amounts of data. A handful of different applications have been developed to manage and analyze these huge amounts of data. We'll discuss those in a few minutes, but first, let's take a look at why anyone would want to collect this information and what they can gain from having it. Well, there are a few schools of thought on the collection of big data. Let's take a look at the government perspective first. Governments all over the planet collect data to determine the best course of action for laws, programs, relationships with other nations, and even wars. Spies travel to foreign countries to collect information that would help in some of these causes. Politicians meet with constituents to get their input on laws and programs, and military analysts study the actions of other nations' capabilities to ensure an upper hand if a conflict ever arises. Many years ago, this was done through personal contact, but as technological capabilities have increased, we have found easier ways to collect more information using internet applications and capabilities. Imagine the capabilities of an organization like the National Security Agency that has the ability to collect many different streams at a constant rate 24 hours a day. That can be valuable information, but it is so much that no one person can possibly analyze it to find the gold that may be hidden in the midst of other mundane information. The more data a government can collect, the more informed they are, and, at least theoretically, the decision process is much more effective with this amount of information. But governments are not the only ones collecting mass amounts of information. Big businesses are doing the same thing, but for a slightly different reason. For business, it's about the bottom line. It's about making money. It's about finding out as much as possible about a customer or potential customer so that you can market your product or service to them in a more effective way. There is no reason to show a car advertisement to someone who isn't looking to buy a new car. That is simply a waste of advertising dollars. But if you know someone is thinking about buying a new television, and you can target your advertisements to that person so that they see a lot of television ads, your likelihood of making a sale is very good. So how does anyone find out what a customer may be looking for? You probably already figured out the answer to that question. Big data. Or more accurately, the collection of big data. Have you noticed that when you shop online, or at least browse different online stores, you tend to receive advertisements for the types of products you were looking at? It's not uncommon to look for products on a site like Amazon and then see advertisements for those same types of products pop up on other websites from other organizations like Google. This is all accomplished through collecting data from users and analyzing it to determine the best way to engage with an individual customer. But it isn't just online. Brick and mortar stores do the same thing, except they tend to track customer purchases based on credit card numbers or membership programs. Several years ago, a story emerged about the Target department store's big data system predicting someone was pregnant based on the types of purchases that they made. This is all done through collecting information. So whether it is a government entity trying to find the best way to manage governmental affairs, or a business trying to find the best way to earn higher levels of income, collecting and analyzing big data has become the method of choice. Think about how often you use an application like Facebook. What do they know about you? Well, for starters, they know as much personal information as you are willing to share within your profile. This isn't just about the information you share with others. It is all sitting on their servers, and every update, picture, video, or comment you make on your account is also on their servers. Their big data systems can extrapolate a lot about you based on the seemingly benign information you post every day. Now, this isn't meant to scare you, and we're not going to get into the privacy discussions. That's for another class. But I do want to make the point that data collection is incredibly easy for these organizations because we freely offer it up to them on a proverbial silver platter. Have you ever wondered how Facebook makes money? Well, for starters, they sell information to advertisers so that the advertising capabilities I discussed a few minutes ago are possible. And they make a lot of money doing it. They collect information on every Facebook user, which currently amounts to almost 25% of the world's population. And through big data analysis, they are able to strip out what advertisers want and make a profit. Google does the same thing, and other companies do as well. Who would have ever thought that information at this level could be so valuable? Well, big data applications have made all of this possible. To be fair, since I mentioned online data collection by organizations like Facebook and Google, I should also point out that other companies have been collecting information for their businesses as well. One example is oil companies that have processed large amounts of seismic data for many years to help determine the amount of oil that is still available underground. And for what it's worth, scientists have been studying big data to help determine weather patterns, seismological activity, human migration, DNA patterns, and the list goes on. It is important to know that even though a lot of big data activity is being conducted by large internet organizations, there is also a lot of scientific work using large data sets to research a variety of important topics.
There is currently a large offering of software applications that can manage big data needs, and there are a few specific ones that I would like to highlight here because of their current popularity within this space. These applications allow for the collection, storage, and processing of large swaths of information, and while they are just a few of the offerings, they tend to be the most widely used. But it is more than just an application. Big data is typically managed using a suite of tools that help to distribute the workload across multiple servers, manage the content, store the actual data, and provide a variety of interfaces to streamline the analysis process. Storing this data really isn't vendor specific. Most organizations processing this amount of data use what is known as hyperscale computing environments that are able to store and retrieve massive amounts of data at very high speeds. These environments are also designed to be scalable so that they can be added to as more data storage is needed. IBM offers capabilities in this space, as does a less commonly known organization by the name of Hedvig. But some of the largest data storage users have developed their own physical platforms in-house.
Storage is only a small part of the equation. The real capability comes from analyzing the data to extrapolate information that fills the needs we discussed earlier. Hadoop is one of the suites of tools that is used to process big data. It is owned by the famous Apache organization, and it is completely open source and completely free. NoSQL is another large-scale database application that can be used for the same purposes. It is offered and maintained by Oracle, which has been in the database business for a long time, and can be quite expensive to operate on servers with many processors. And the final application I wish to touch on is Cassandra, which is also provided by Apache and is currently used by Apple and Netflix to manage their data capabilities. So now you should have a good foundational understanding of big data, what it is, why it is important, and why so many people are trying to get their hands on as much data as possible. This understanding will be important as we move into data warehousing concepts in future lectures, but it can also help you appreciate why so many stores are constantly vying for you to give them more information about yourself. Businesses and governments alike seem to have a need for more information so they can do a better job at providing the services that they exist to provide.